Hi there, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nichole Coyne, and I am joined today with Tiffini Jacobs, who is with the Aligned Teacher Network and is also someone who does human design. And we're going to talk all about human design today. And Tiffini has been so helpful with helping me to understand my own human design in a different way, and also to understand how much I have perfectionism in my chart and how it resonates with what I do as a therapist, as a coach, as a consultant, and as a group practice owner. So let's dive right into the content to give you guys a really good overview and expose my vulnerabilities of my chart to really allow a good understanding of this. Tiffini, would you like to do a little bit more of an introduction on yourself and, why are you doing human design? What got you into human design?
Sure. Thanks, Nichole. I'm really excited to be here today. So, as you said, my name is Tiffini Jacobs, and I started the Aligned Teacher Network to really help many other people in my world go to their inner teacher. Most people are very good at looking for sources outside themselves for help and support. But through my transformational journey, I have noticed that all of the tools and strategies are here within me. And so I'm a school teacher, as well as I'm studying to be a psychotherapist. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and I'm a human design expert. And the reason I really have gravitated to human design is exactly the mission of my business. I found the human design system itself, to be my map. It's not my life determined in front of me, but it's my roadmap as to how I can move forward, both in my energetic body and my physical body. And it also helps align the mind within the body. We're no longer living in this rational place of mind-body dualism. We're here to use the entire body to help us align in our energy.
I love that because I also think too, similarly to psychotherapy and what we're doing, we're constantly looking for a guide or we're looking for something that really helps us to understand ourselves better. And it's not until we actually truly understand ourselves better that we're able to make better decisions about what we want to do. Just a little who and why. So my name is Nichole Coyne. I am a group practice owner in the state of Florida, and I also do coaching and consulting for perfectionists and high achievers to help on overcoming the negative effects of their perfectionism and really resetting the ways in which they function, right? So this means overcoming imposter syndrome, overcoming high functioning anxiety, overcoming burnout and compassion fatigue, and really starting to learn a whole new system. And I think the first time I had human design completed was with another good friend of mine, but also was a really big experience for me to see my vulnerabilities and see how much perfectionism was actually tied into my chart and existed and manifested with me in very, very specific ways. And also to understand how I can make decisions. I think that that's one of the things that I absolutely love human design with the most, is that it helps me to make decisions and make practical movement towards what I want. I skipped one slide ahead and I just kind of wanted to show you guys, obviously our photos and talk a little bit about the who and why, but also to understand the benefits here. So what are some of the benefits of us understanding our human design chart? And I'll go back to, going over what it is, but what are some of the benefits here, Tiffini?
Well, you can all understand that we have energy, right? We have energy to give out into the world, but we also have energy within us that has to be turned around here. So we're so good, especially as perfectionists, to be giving outside of ourselves, but we also want a reciprocal relationship with that energy. So human design helps us understand, first of all, how our energy works within our physical body. So we all have like an auric field, and we all have an electromagnetic charge within us. And so it's our responsibility to find out what that energy is. And not only that, but to find out our type, our strategy, and our authority. So those are the top three. I call those the triangle of human design. If anything you're going to walk away with is studying those three things, because we don't want to just live our lives throwing spaghetti at the wall. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it works once, but you don't have a pattern to show you evidence of how you can best align with your energy, not only within, but without. So that's a massive benefit to get your strategy and authority for your life moving forward. People hang up with me and the first thing they figure out is like, oh, I'm a generator, or oh, I'm a projector, but they've been that since birth. And as you said, many of the things that are living within your energy chart have been there since you were young.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
within psychotherapy, we're here helping you unravel, right? And human design is one tool to help you unravel some of the social conditioning that's gone on, but also then rebuild back what is already there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So if you were starting with somebody new, and just because I don't think everybody understands this, what is the information that you would need in order to do a human design chart on, somebody's named Susie?
The first thing you need to know is your birth date,
Mm-hmm.
your birthplace, and your birth time.
Okay.
Now, the time is flexible throughout the day. If you don't have the exact time, I can help clientele figure out where their energy lies best within that 24-hour period, but it's a bit of an investigation. So, having your birth time is excellent to go back and look before you sign up for a design reading.
Great. Awesome. Well, would you like to go over this slide with talking a little bit about just the overview of what human design is and what we're going to be
Sure.
chatting about today?
Sure. So human design, I'll get into the details in a minute, but overall, like the thesis statement of human design, it shows you how to access your body's consciousness as a decision-making tool, as you said, and ultimately how to live in resonance with your authentic self. Now that sounds really general. So what we're trying to do is move back to our physical body as the place of not only decision making, but also of aligning with the opportunities that are meant for our energy type. So it's very important that you understand that this is a map. And it's not your destiny, but it's a place to look at your whole body. So we're now paying attention to sensations in our body rather than always staying up here in the mental to-do list and what you said, the imposter syndrome and the mental anxiety, the loop that goes up here. It's a whole connection, bringing our minds back into our body and using our heads as one of those tools within that system.
I like that so much because as a therapist who does a lot of somatic counseling, I think that we're so disconnected. One of the things I love saying to both my therapy clients and my coaching clients is your body hears what it's saying, whether you even realize that's happening or not. When we're in crisis, a lot of the times our body starts responding and it doesn't understand that we're just going on a roller coaster or going over a tall bridge or something that might be less minimal than a crisis or a trauma. But we have to really redirect and understand that. So that somatic feature always drew me towards human design because I think that helps so much with understanding how we connect to ourselves and even the layout of this. I can't wait to be able to show the layout to the audience because I think that makes such a huge understanding with seeing how our system functions.
Yes, very much so. So why don't we move on and see what this beautiful body graph is all about. So I'd love to just pause here for a moment and give people just a taste. So we're going to give you a little hors d'oeuvre menu here as to what is going on in this visual.
A lot.
So this visual, yeah. So when you first saw this visual, Nichole, like when you were first introduced to it, like what went through your mind when you first saw this?
So there's two really big things, I think, and it's because I'm so detail oriented that I look at details as much as possible. So why am I going to the left on everything is like one of my big questions. And why is it so blank at the top, but like really busy at the bottom? Like what's happening in the bottoms of the system for me? So those are the two things that really stuck out, but also I need understanding. I need you to start giving me details on what's happening here.
Okay, so let's dive right in. So as you can see, there is a beautiful visual image, and this is called the human design body graph. So the word graph, right? It's a written version of a written representation of how your energy is meant to be working within your body when you are living in your alignment. Okay, so there's many different ancient sciences that are working within one holistic system. And that's what attracted me the most as a teacher, as a deep diver into information. I love systems that help us understand ourselves and get to the nitty-gritty. So the first part is based in these numbers. You see numbers everywhere, right? So one side of the chart, which is the blue, the personality side over here, this is your conscious awareness. This is your ego. This is your personality of who you think Nichole is. And this is actually Nichole's body graph.
Mm.
And on the left-hand side is we have our unconscious awareness. So in psychotherapy, I think we would refer to this as our unconsciousness, right? Our subconscious brain. And much of our information lives in these numbers. So these numbers are based in the ancient I Ching, which is from 12,000 years ago in China. And they had a number that meant a certain personality trait. Okay. But we're only going to focus in a design reading on the top 4 numbers, which are called your incarnation cross, which tells us 4 things. It tells us what we're here to do, what we're here to learn, what keeps us healthy, and what deeply fulfills us. You can imagine hopping off a human design reading and having that information as your base to then bring to your psychotherapist and talk more about. It just creates such a groundedness in discussion.
Yeah. And even with your coach, like coach, psychotherapist, like any provider, really, just to be able to understand yourself a little bit better. It's like the advance of the horoscope piece, but with more evidence backing how it supports us.
That's right. It's almost like if you're building a house, it's those 4 pillars, right, that are starting the foundation.
Yeah.
The Kabbalah is ancient Jewish mysticism, and these are where the lines are living. So if you notice where you have any pink or blue connected lines, so if we have to the left where the big diamond is, and you have this pink line that's connecting the 10 there to the 57. So that's what we call a life spark channel. So as Nichole was interested, she said a lot of the defined energy in her body is living down there on the left-hand side. And that's because this particular channel here is helping define that energy. So a life spark channel is just a certain gift or strength that acts like a lightning bolt between 2 energy centers in your body. So you have a few. You have the 1057, but you also have the 952 down at the bottom, connecting your sacral to your root, which we're going to talk about later on.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And, people have a lot of channels, and some people have a few channels, and it's more about just the depth of your energy versus the breadth of your energy.
Okay.
The other piece is the astrology. So as you can see, all of these numbers on either side of the chart, in the blue and the pink again, are sitting in planetary places. And so in human design, we don't have our typical Libra or Sagittarius. We have what we call our conscious sun, our unconscious sun, our conscious earth, and our unconscious earth, and then the rest of the planets as we go down. The chakra system. Okay, so this is the coolest part, is because these shapes that you see that are so prominent here, these shapes are attached to an energy center in your body. So some people might be familiar with the chakra system.
Yeah.
And it's that rainbow, right? That rainbow of central energy that lives down your spinal cord almost. But human design has now taught us that we are capable of holding more energy in our bodies, and we have 9 energy centers. And as you can see, the head and the mind at the very top, they are disconnected from the rest of the body. They are only connected by that middle, that square, that throat center. And so it's the throat, which is the most important center in human design, which helps manifest and express our energy. And it brings the head and the mind up with the lower body energy centers all out of us in expression.
That's really cool. I like how that's described, and also like seeing that as a pinnacle. There's I don't even want to call it a diagnosis, but there's a symptomology that exists within Chinese medicine. And for individuals that are really struggling with communicating things or really having a hard time with expressing their needs, it's called plum throat. And it's literally this idea that it feels like there's a plum stuck in your throat. And so there's a hold. And so I think that this is a really interesting chakra to be able to understand and define with how it connects everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see, just one more thing, the white versus the gray. So
Mhm.
the gray means you have more defined energy, more constant, consistent access to these energy centers. And the openness, the white areas are where you're more of a receiver with your energy. So more areas of boundaries in these particular areas need to be looked at a little more deeply.
Is it really common to have a chart that looks similar to this, or am I a little off the line here with having the darkened lower areas and the openness on the top?
I would say I've looked at probably over 300 different charts so far in a
Yeah.
short period of time. And I would say yours is more on the average,
Okay.
to have more of that balance between open and defined.
Okay.
But there are exceptions always to every rule.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I was just wondering if I do hit average line versus
You're
somewhere else.
you're you're meeting the expectations of across the board. Yep,
Beautiful. That's all
absolutely.
I wanted to hear. Do you want to go this codon rings and DNA? What
Oh,
is that?
yes, sorry. So the beautiful thing when I found out that this was not only just, astrology was in here, but there were four ancient sciences all married in one system. But the Chinese had such access to information that we can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So we have done so much work with the understanding of DNA and our codons within our DNA. So we have 32, I believe, codons in our DNA. And the Chinese put 64 gates within their understanding of these hexagrams that they came up with, almost like mini hieroglyphics that we have now transposed into a number system.
Mm.
So these 64 codons, you double the 32, you get 64. And so they had already access to information around our DNA and how it works in our body. And it's just so fascinating to see how human design and the ancient sciences are now mapping onto quantum physics and quantum healing. It's really changing the way that we perceive ourselves as not only healers of our own self, but also how it can be more instantaneous and it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out process. A lot of aha moments come within this system because of the marrying of the modern and the ancient sciences.
That's so cool. I love that. Do we have anything we want to add on this one, or should we go to the next slide?
No, let's try the next one. I think that was enough for that.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you tell us about a little bit about perfectionism and how you have learned through human design, to deal with your own stuff as well as maybe helping clients.
Yeah, the idea of what perfectionism is and what everybody perceives it as is a little bit different than what the research defines it. And the research has actually had a really hard time with just nailing down something, right? Imagine that, perfectionism research and trying to come up with a definition, right? Perfectionism often is described as someone, and when it's unhealthy, I want to go through the unhealthy part of this, as someone who works unremittingly towards standards and expectations regardless of what that costs them, regardless of how that affects them. And there's a difference between healthy striving versus unhealthy striving. And I think one of the things that comes off so significantly with perfectionists when they're starting to learn about their perfectionism is that they start to unravel these pieces that demonstrate who they authentically are. With human design, I think one of the things that I have noticed even more throughout my own research and throughout coaching perfectionists and working with perfectionists in therapy settings is that our imperfections are actually some of the most valuable pieces of who we are, and how we show up in different spaces allows other people to feel connected to us. I had a conversation with somebody not terribly long ago, and they're like, "Oh, perfectionists are these all stuck up people that like have it all together and, can't do anything outside of the box." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's one stigma that exists with this definition. But the reality is that perfectionists are people that are actually seeking a lot of control because in other areas of their life or in themselves, they have experienced a lack of control. And so the only way that they really feel comfortable is by working to maintain control and is by seeking their worth in the things that they are doing." And so when we talk about perfectionism, I'm going to talk about it kind of on a spectrum, right? Of the more extreme cases versus when we're dealing with it and it's dealing with it in a healthy way, you can actually utilize perfectionism to help you get further within what you want to accomplish. And that's the really cool part about it. That's what I help people to kind of manifest and really understand within the work that they're doing. So let's jump into this piece. Ooh, more colors. What do we got going on here, Tiffany?
Okay. So within human design, there are 5 different auric field types, and you, like myself, are a generator. And generators are 37% of the population, and they are the creative powerhouses. Out of all types, we have the most amount of energy to give to ourselves, but also to give outside of ourselves. We are the worker bees of society. People look to us to not only use our creativity, but they also look to us to help complete projects and put things to bed. And our aura fields are walking around saying, I'm available. I'm available. Come on in.
Oh, goodness.
Does that relate to you being a
Oh, for
generator?
sure. It
Yeah.
literally says stamped therapist
Yeah.
sometimes on my head. So,
Come on in. I'm available. And many times when people find out they're a generator type, they go back to their childhood. They think of things as like, oh, yeah, where were my boundaries weak? Where did I let people in too much and take too much of myself and not look at what sparks me? So as a generator, if you look at the bottom red circle here,
yep.
it is your sacral center. And in every generator chart, this is going to be colored in gray and defined. That's the one thing that connects us as generators. So we have constant, consistent access to our energy, and it's always on 24/7.
Hmm.
Yes. And so you're on the go all the time. Does that resonate with you? This constant energy that's like, someone said the other day to me, it was like the Energizer Bunny lives within them.
Yeah, it does. And no matter what I do, like even I've had to really teach myself, and it's something I now teach a lot of clients, how to slow down. Because I think a lot of the times we believe, or at least I did, this is my own perspective with it, I believed that the way that I was successful in achieving something was to constantly keep producing. When the reality was, the more I could learn how to rest and rejuvenate, and I could refuel some of those systems, the better the work came, the more creativity flowed, the easier it was to just accomplish. But I do resonate a lot with the engine rarely stopping. It is, it's challenging.
Yeah, I find it very challenging myself too. And you raise an important point there about producing, in the education system, we have observations as well as conversations with students. And we put so much effort and emphasis on the product. What are you producing? And we live in this consumerist society. Like, what is the material thing that's coming out of your creative power?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be something tangible. So I tell clients many of times, rest is also productive.
Huge. Yeah.
Massive. And their light bulbs go off. It's like, oh, I have permission to rest. That's still doing.
Just to clarify too, so when you're saying with the generator, the boundaries and the people pleasing, that all generators kind of have that same tendency, right? Where they're really having to pay attention to their boundaries and try to reduce that people pleasing because their aura is constantly open. Is that right?
Absolutely. 100%. So there's also the generator, but they also have our cousin, the manifesting generator. And together we make up 70% of the population.
Wow.
And so we're also modeling for the rest of the world how it is and should be to work. And that's not encapsulating the way all of our energies are meant to be enacting within our bodies. So
that aligns so much with how perfectionism functions within society too, because now more than ever, we're constantly held to this ongoing expectation, even with like the insertion of AI and all these different tools. It's how do you do things more effectively? How much more can you fit in a day? And what's really interesting is when I'm working with these individuals, perfectionists, high achievers, these people that identify this way, the number one thing that we have to focus on initially is boundaries, because they have no stop and go point related to work, related to how much they're doing, related to giving, related to people pleasing, right? And so that because they don't have that really good structure, they're constantly overdoing it and giving way too much of their energy, which later creates resentment and anger and frustration and burnout.
Yeah. I've been doing some of my own research around appeasement and the fawning. So we have the flight, fight, fawn, and freeze, all the 4 Fs. And I find a lot of generator types I sit with, there's this childhood background of appeasing other people. So the threat or whatever might be outside of themselves is then thwarted,
Mhm.
and it's a safety protection mechanism. Yeah. So let's talk about the contradiction between this creative powerhouse energy that you have, but also kind of the open head. So this
Yeah.
is our head center. Everyone's body graph looks the same in terms of the where the shapes are, but everyone's shapes and energy are going to be very different. So your head in particular, if you notice, it doesn't have any numbers highlighted,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have any channels in it either. And so what we call here is we call it undefined center, but it's also wide open. So not only is your head walking around like this open receiver, so you're very open-minded,
Mm.
you're very open to other people's thoughts, you're very open to critically think in many different ways and question things. But the opposite side of those beautiful things in your open head are sometimes you could be susceptible to the way other people think. And you might feel pressure, because this is a pressure center in human design. You might feel pressure to think a certain way. And maybe this existed when you were younger, but you've done a lot of work around all of these creative ideas that come to you. And sometimes you might have difficulty prioritizing
Yeah.
which creative idea to go with. And then it matches with that energy. It's like you have this energy to go forward, but this open stuff going on in your head is like there's so much to do.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. It's so interesting that this is like something without you even, knowing personal things, which you do, but like without even knowing personal things about me, you're like, oh no, like this is what's happening. So I'm like, oh, my head's empty. But really, my head's very open for what it's allowing to come in. And I can definitely see it at a younger age. It really was something that almost got me into trouble because I was constantly seeking other insights and understanding. I'm a big researcher. A lot of perfectionists are, right? Like they want to go so deep into the material, which can create biases for the ways that we see things. It's the same thing when we are going through therapy and we start getting a diagnosis. We start believing that this diagnosis is who we are, when the reality is if we can align and understand parts of that diagnosis, it doesn't have to be a crux or something that's a flaw or an imperfection in us. We just have to understand the management system that we now need in order to help overcome it. And the more we resist, the harder it is to actually manage. So I think this is really interesting. Tell me about my attention to detail, though. I want to hear all about this.
Yes. So it could be very over. So in your chart also lives this focus and this drive and this determination, right? And you pay so close attention to detail, and that can get you in the weeds. I think we started our conversation before we even got on here about talking about sitting in these weeds. And when you get so lost in the weeds, and I can get so lost in analyzing someone's human design chart, you really have to remember to pull back out. So I call it the microscope telescope piece,
Yeah.
right? So you have a very gifted ability to go in deep with the microscope, and I would want my coach and my psychotherapist to have that skill. But
Yeah.
within your own life, right, when you're using the microscope over than the telescope, more so than the telescope, it can get you too concentrated in the pieces that aren't connecting back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
1,000%. Even when I started my group practice and I was building a website, I decided that I wanted to be in the know of how to fix and create all the things that I needed. So I wouldn't have to depend on people. It's a perfectionist thing, right? But it's also, I'm sure, a generator thing. And one of the things that I did probably close to 12 times was I just kept redoing a website. Like I kept redoing it, trying to refine it and getting really lost in the details of it and seeking constant research and constant support. And when I'm working with entrepreneurs now, I was having a conversation with somebody else recently, and we were just talking about she wanted me to give her a defined amount of numbers, like an hour that she should work per day. And I'm like, that's not how this works, right? You're most effective based on a certain hour of your day. But also, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results and just saying, like, oh, social media likes this and this is what everybody's attracted to, you're just spinning yourself out, girl. Like that's not you prioritizing your time. That's you wasting time and focusing too much on the little details that don't necessarily always matter to everybody else.
Right. Yeah. And like focusing that example of focusing in on your website. Well, let's come back at with the telescope and see how are we going to get people to come here? Like
Mhm.
this is the most beautiful thing ever, but we need to bring that telescope back out and be like, okay, it's gorgeous. I have this beautiful sculpture,
Yeah.
but where's the audience to then admire it and to get use of it in terms of its resources that you've developed?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. All right.
All right,
Let's do something
let's move
about
on here. Yeah, let's talk with those. This is my one of my favorite parts to talk about.
it. Okay.
This is the incarnation cross, at least living in the top gate up there, the very, very top of the chart
Okay.
to the right. Yeah, the 54. So let me review again what the incarnation cross is. First of all, it has nothing to do with Christianity. I always tell people that right away. It's not religiously based. So the incarnation cross is about the star alignments between your conscious ego and your spirit and your soul.
Okay.
And so in the top right hand corner here on the screen, your conscious sun of what you're here to do. So your overall big job within this body, Nichole, is drive. You have this massive, like, think about yourself driving, okay? The
Mhm.
physical act of driving. And what you're trying to do when you're driving is not only go forwards and
Mhm.
make progress, right? But you're also trying to manage the direction and the flow and keeping other people comfortable along the way. And do you have snacks packed and the whole thing with the drive?
Mhm.
So within you, within your energetic body and in your physical self, because it's living on the conscious side of the incarnation cross, is this drive forward. So when you were little, did you feel this need to constantly push forwards and move all the time, keep moving the needle?
Yeah, and I think, I was raised with parents who were nonstop. Like we didn't have rest weekends. I didn't even learn what that was until I was an adult, and making my own decisions. But yeah, and I even finished my master's very young. I finished all my educational programs really young. I jumped right in and got everything done as quickly and kept going, then what? And then what happens? And then what do I do? So yes, that resonates very deeply. And I'm laughing because of the vulnerability that exists here, but also because it is something I have to constantly mediate. It takes
Mhm.
a lot of energy to slow it down once you get used to constantly going off of it, right? Constantly having that drive.
Mhm. And my husband and I, we sometimes talk about like, is progress forward? Is moving forward always progress?
Oh, yeah.
And development, especially with children that I work with, like development isn't this forward line. It's not this upwards staircase that we go on. It goes like a roller coaster in our
Mhm.
life. And how do we know contrast unless we start to fail?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you could tell me a million things about perfectionists and their relationship with failure. It's challenging because we don't like falling down. It's almost like we've done something wrong, you
Yeah.
know?
One of the things that I say pretty often is success doesn't actually come from more success. Success actually comes from mistakes and failures. And when we can understand that even with our imperfections that we're working to embrace and we're working to challenge and connect with other people, because perfectionism can be hugely isolating. If you're just focusing on this line and you're not connecting with anybody as you go through it and you're plowing through, you really miss the interpersonal connections with people a lot of the times. And I just like the conversation you have with your husband, I don't agree that progress often means like, oh, success. Progress just means in one way or another, we are making some type of momentum, whether it didn't go the way that we wanted to, and we had to derail off the beaten path this weekend and go somewhere else, or we needed to even pull over and take time and do that rest and engage in that. So it's really interesting to see how much of this gate for me is so strong, because I think for a
Yeah.
lot of perfectionists, this is probably one of the things that reigns true with them.
Yeah. And so when I do a reading with people, I not only look at their incarnation cross, but I also pick up on those 4 areas and see where else it's living in their chart. So when it's doubled or when it's tripled, it means that you have even more of it living in other places in your body graph. So it's a double and triple. You have triple the amount of energy that's driving the drive forwards. And it's interesting where it lands in the astrology because it's sitting here in your Mercury. And we didn't talk about this before. So it's sitting in your Mercury and it's sitting in your Saturn, which I found so interesting because Mercury is all about communication.
Mm,
And Saturn, we have our Saturn return around the age of 30, and Saturn is about a rebirth.
mhm.
And so I wanted to ask you today, like, how have you, used drive to almost, how has your communication changed in the last few years or in your growth? How have you communicated it with drive in less of a fiery way? Or you can help me understand that, but also how have you redefined your drive for yourself, for your own health and well-being?
Yeah. Um, to me, communication is a fluid thing that we do, right? Like, and the more fluidity that we have with our communication, the more receptive we can be to understanding alternatives, as well as understanding ways in which we function. And so I think, you know, communication has always been really, really, really important for me. And obviously, I'm in the psychotherapy land. So what you say matters and it has significance. And it's part of the reason that I have a career. And that is because so many people come to me to discuss, like, I don't understand how these things are playing out. And when we break it down, we hear so much about the communication patterns. And
Mm.
I was 30 when I opened my group practice. And so I think it's really interesting because I actually had a conversation with myself to my future self about, if I stay where I'm at right now, is my future self going to be happy with that? Because I communicate with myself all the time and it's not a psychological thing. It's because it's supportive of me. It's supportive of me understanding and trusting my own voice, my own value. And when I actually looked forward, I knew that even if I failed, I would be so upset with myself if I didn't try. And I didn't fail. And it's been hugely successful. And I think that that communication has really helped me to move my drive forward, but also teach me how to slow my drive down, right? Like, how do I actually sit down and just have comfort and understanding and gratitude for a lot of these things? Because this is something that perfectionists really struggle with: celebrations and gratitude and slowing down to acknowledge accomplishments. We're not doing this. We don't care about the award ceremony. We just want to know what the next award is that we have to work towards to achieve. What's next on that list? So I think it's really interesting to see how that all plays together and how it's all constantly going in a momentum, whether it's positive or negative, right? Whether we take a detour or we keep going straight.
Yeah. It sounds to me like as you're talking, like this drive has been very more process oriented, right? So if we can slow the brake, slow the gas pedal down a little bit and use the brake within that drive, it's more balanced and it's more, you're appreciating the journey along the way rather than just the end piece.
Yeah. Yeah. That constant push doesn't always make us feel connected to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Probably sends our nervous system into like a heightened awareness as well.
For sure it does. Okay. What do we
All
got
right.
going on here?
So speaking of the nervous system, let's talk about these sparks, right? These sparks. So, you know, these are like the lightning. I like to refer to these as the lightning bolts within each one of our types. So I should refrain here because the reflector type, so they're only 1% of the population, they don't have any channels in their chart because all of their centers are receivers and they're wide open. So everyone else in the human design system, the generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and manifestors, will all have at least one channel. And I've seen up to 10 channels living in people's designs. So you have the channel, which is called the 952. So the 9 means determination, and the 52 means you have the ability to know, where to drive this determination forwards with. And when you put those together, it's called focus. And so this channel is focused on perfecting and mastering things through concentration and it can hold the energy of a group in one place so they can examine and go deep into whatever's in front of them. So I want you to think about, and the audience here as well, of when you get a regular camera, not just our phones, but when you get a really good quality camera, those lenses that you add to the camera provide more opportunity for that focus. So focus isn't just about going deep, right? It's also about refining the lens and getting more clarity. So many perfectionist types can be wandering around certainty. They want answers. They want that paper to prove their point of view, or that evidence in the book that they're reading. And focus is more about getting to a place of clarity instead of certainty.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about your relationship with focus in your life.
I don't struggle with focus. I struggle with procrastination at times, which I think all of us, but certainly perfectionists struggle with. But the second piece here, the channel that can hold the energy of a group in one place so they can examine, go deep into whatever is in front of them. One of the things that perfectionists typically struggle with the most, and I will be very, 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 very honest with this, is connecting and slowing down to have that connection. And so one of the services that I actually offer is the group coaching, which helps to do exactly this. And in that group coaching, I've had one round where we talked a lot about slowing down to speed up and what that actually means. And I think that there's such value, just like you're learning the lens on a camera and to getting that into focus. If you're constantly twisting that lens, you're not finding where you need to be. Whereas if you slow down to really understand what's getting clearer and what's getting more focus, you can see exactly what needs to be worked on. And I think too, with understanding that focus and understanding, a lot of the times it's not how we're functioning, but it's why we're doing it. Why are you working 13 hours in a day? Like, what is the drive here? And what is the thing that is constantly pushing you into believing that your time equates to success, right? Like putting all that energy into it. So I think it's really interesting that I do have this, this channel, the spark, because this is something I love helping people to understand, but also love mastering within myself. There's nothing I love more than to just kind of shut off the world. My husband, sometimes he'll just go fishing and he's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm just going to go focus on something that I want to work on. And I will literally come in my office and just deep dive into something, or a book. I love deep diving into a book and really focusing on the characters. And that it just makes everything feel very aligned for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels very like, so this is what we call a format channel. So it's really, it's one of the more important channels because it's living within that root. The root center is very, very pressure oriented. And so when someone has one of these format channels, it formats the energy for the entire system. So it's that telescope piece. And you definitely carry many different ways of moving your camera lens and focusing in and out. But because it's in defined energy, it's in the gray area, you have the ability to, like you said, help other people learn and teach them how to focus in more aligned ways too. 100%.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We have, I think, one more to discover here. Okay. This is kind of like a great way to put an exclamation mark on our talk today, because this is what we call a hanging gate. So we talked about a channel. A channel is when two numbers are connected in like a lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
But you have at the bottom here, you have gate 58, and that's kind of hanging. It doesn't have its partner. So its partner is 18 over there in the intuition center. And when you are in the energy of maybe your husband or a friend or a client, if they have gate 18, guess what? You make that life spark channel when you're in the presence. So human design isn't just this one-off of your energy and that's it. We're in constant relationship with other people. And that's why some people are much closer to us, because we feel these bonds of these life spark channels that are lit up when we're in other people's energy.
Very cool.
And so gate 58, you have it on both sides of your chart because it's both pink and blue. And it's the gift of zest. So let me explain zest. Think about a lemon zest, right? Or a lime zest. Like, it's very pungent. It's like if you eat a little bit of on your food, whew, it's like an explosion of flavor and taste. So within your design, you have both on your unconscious and conscious side. This gate is focused on living your best life and knowing what to improve or correct, or to correct to get to that best life. And so the 18, if you had it, it would be this gate of correction, which would add more emphasis to it as well. So you have this ability to just know inherently when you walk into a room, when you read, an assignment, you have this gifted ability to know what needs to be improved, but you also have the focus and the determination and the drive to make that happen as well. And it's about making your life better. It's not about taking this perfectionistic way. Like you said at the beginning, you're talking about the beautiful things that perfectionism can give us if we can just bring a different lens to our understanding of what it really means.
Yeah, this is really cool because I like home design and I like, redoing a room and stuff like that. My husband always say to me, he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just going to go sit in the room. I'm just going to go sit there for a little bit and see what I want to make that shift and that improvement and that change with." So this is really resonating on a tangible level, but then also too on a business level, right? When we're working with an individual and we can see that there's some deficits with an area that they want to work on and they're having a limiting belief towards it and constantly manifesting with that. I can call it out really quickly, especially when I hear their inner critic. It just pops to me because that's what's saying, "Hey, like this is what's stopping you from reaching your goal and hitting your drive." So I love this. And I need to find more people with the channel 18 than it sounds like.
It just will give you even more ability, like more ability to have that critical eye of the room. Yeah.
That's really, really cool. You have the 18 open?
I do have the 18. I do.
Oh,
I'm missing the 58. So in that way,
there we
when
go.
we're together, we definitely have the gift of zest and correction with each other. Absolutely.
That's amazing. I want to thank you so much for doing this with me today. I know that this will be really supportive for a lot of my clients, and I know that you support a ton of people with helping them to understand their human design better and help make better choices in their life and understand perfectionism, because you and I both have a good understanding of what that is. So please feel free to tell me on this slide, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. The best way would be going to my website, which is the alignteachernetwork.com. And on that website, not only is there information about human design, but people can look up their human design chart. So if you want your own visual, your own map, your own guide, so you can go on the website and find your own human design body graph. So there's a little dot that says find your own human design, and you can pull up your own chart and download it for yourself. The other best thing to do is to email me. You can even email me with your design chart and I can give you some insight into it, or book a free discovery call with me to find out more about it. And you can follow me on Instagram at the Aligned Teacher Network, where I give lots of hints and I sometimes have contests and give more information about human design in general.
Love that. Thanks, Tiffany. I appreciate all that. I will have all the links posted at the bottom of this video too, so that it's really easy to access all these features. You can follow Tiffany Jacobs. If you are interested in any type of coaching or consulting with me, please get your human design reading done first, so we can utilize that when you are coaching and in your program with me. This is actually really beneficial too for those individuals who are interested in group coaching, so we can understand how we can align together and make better decisions moving forward. I absolutely love this. Feel free to follow me on my Instagram or email and reach out if you found this supportive. Please give it a like in the comments and let us know if there's anything else that we can support you with, and we'd love to answer any of your questions. Thank you so much. And Tiffany, again, thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Nichole.